Radio.
Are you ready for a new experience? To see life from another point of view? New hope, new expression, new joy. This is your radio hour. Welcome to Viewpoint with Father John.
And welcome, friends. You're tuned to NBC Radio, KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or you can listen from anywhere around the world at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John. I am your host, Father John Reed. As a reminder, you can follow us on Instagram or Facebook, or both if you like. Just put in Viewpoint with Father John and you'll find our pages. They'll come right to you, just like dynamite and water and the fish come up. You know, good stuff, I'm telling you. And if you miss an episode, just go to YouTube and put in the search bar, Viewpoint with Father John, KCAA, and you'll get all of 4 years now of past episodes. So this is really an exciting time for us. We're coming up on our fourth anniversary of the show. I didn't think we'd be here this long, but we have been, and that's great. And also you can follow me on Twitter at Father John Reed, and Father is spelled out, and Reed is R-E-I-D, the proper Irish. Anything less would be uncivilized. So I hope you'll come join us on there. And I do get some of the letters from you folks that talk to me on those platforms, that you send me the direct messages. I don't know why I keep saying instant message. They're direct messages, but that's where you get me. All of God's children are endowed with extraordinary purpose and ability. I'm on a quest to help as many as possible in fully realizing one's divinely inspired potential. Disposing a false narrative and embracing genuineness inspires clarity of purpose. My role is to help overcome self-imposed limitations in realizing one's spiritual potential. And folks, as a reminder, if you want the best pharmacy in all of the Southland, you want to go to Claremont Pharmacy. That's where I get all my pharmaceutical needs taken care of, including I got all my vaccinations there. I got my booster just recently, and I got my flu shot there recently. Dr. Nikki Ho is the proprietor of that establishment, and she's the best of the best. You know, you want to be treated like family, unless you come from a family that's not nice. But if you want to be treated like you came from a nice family there, they'll really do a great job. And I'll tell you what, all kidding aside, I've never felt so well cared for than when I had all my prescriptions taken over there, because I had another pharmacy I used to go to, and then I experienced how they do things there, and every one of my prescriptions I had Nikki take care of, and she's right on it, and she gives me the stuff I need to keep my A1C where it's supposed to be. And so go to Claremont Pharmacy if you really want a good pharmacy. Also, you want a good DJ, you want LakesideDJServices.com.
Yes. That's
our own Frank. I was going to do it with your last name, but I just can't do it, Frank. You know, Parolo. And, you know, I really am dyslexic, and with the dementia, I have trouble things. So I'm saying to Frank, look, you got to teach me how to say your name. And then we started joking around about it, and I got to the microphone, and I couldn't do it because we were joking around about it. So don't want to do that before we go on air again, okay? But Frank does a fabulous job, and I mean that. You know, I don't endorse anybody I don't absolutely believe in. And he not only has the DJ service, he has the photo booth stuff. And you know, what fun. You know, he has the whole deal. He doesn't have just a couple of props, you know, good luck with that. He has a whole lot of things to choose from. You'll really have a great time, and you'll come back, you'll write the show and say, hey, you know, thanks for sending us over there, because God, you weren't kidding. Frank is the best. So, LakesideDJServices.com. And as usual, I want to tell you about a close friend of mine's program, which is Justice Matters with Glenn Kirshner, and that's on YouTube. And Glenn was a federal prosecutor for 25 years, and before that, he was in the United States Army. Thank you for your service, Glenn, as a prosecutor there in the JAG Corps.
Yeah.
But the man has so much integrity that it's unspeakable. It's so great, and that's why I endorse what he's doing, because we've had so long of false information, disinformation, And you can fact check Glenn, and I fact checked him many times before I would even say anything on this show, even though he and I were friends. And he's right on the money. So if you really want to know about justice issues and what's going on, check out Justice Matters on YouTube. I think you'll really be impressed. I know I am. Now tonight is a great night for me because I wanted to start the year with one of my most favorite guests, which is Dr. John Smith. And as some of you know, Dr. Smith is a psychotherapist, a professor and author of the book, The Authentic Man, A Guide to Happiness and Purpose. And the reason I want to start with him is because I want to start off with the best, plain and simple. And we want to talk a little bit about new beginnings because we're at the beginning of a new year. And for many years, I would make New Year's resolutions, and it would take maybe 3 days before everyone was broken. Because although I meant it, I was quite sincere about the what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I really didn't know how to change what I was doing, have that paradigm change so that there really could be change in my life. What I was trying to do is really polish the mirrors, but not clean the sink, you know?
Yeah.
and it just doesn't work. And you may be able to reflect a little bit better, but if you really want to get cleaned out, you got to have a clean sink too.
Right.
And so, Dr. Smith, you want to talk a little bit about new beginnings?
Well, that's what this time of year usually represents because we're starting a new year. So that means that we're starting off, as you said, with a clean slate, so to speak, or at least that's a good way of thinking about it, I think, is, we've got another year ahead of us, hopefully, and we don't want to drag too much of the past into the present.
Right.
Right? So the gift of the present is that you don't have to drag the past into the present, right? We can let that go to the extent that we can. And then, this is the time of year when most of us, we're kind of taught to think New Year's resolutions.
Right.
So what's a resolution? What would be your definition of a resolution?
Sort of a self-promise, a way of saying this is what's going to make me a better person or more lovable, more likable, more adjusted to society, that
Right,
kind of thing.
right. There's nothing wrong with that, but then what happens if you fall short?
I feel like a failure all over again,
Right,
and that I'm just not good enough in it because I couldn't even keep that simple thing.
which is what we call shame. So
Exactly.
it produces a feeling of shame. I'm not good enough. I'm a failure. Guilt. I should have or I shouldn't have done something.
Should all
or-
over
right?
ourselves, yeah.
Exactly. So, and then, of course, as I've said on other shows, guilt and shame seem to be the precursors for most mental health issues. Anxiety, depression, substance use. Guilt and shame are always very closely associated with those conditions. And here we are setting ourselves up for it again.
Well, they're like a miniature gang that comes in and just beats the heck out of you.
Yeah. Now, on the other hand, there's nothing wrong with setting goals, which
That
is
goal is
kind of, yeah. I think that's where people get off track. A resolution sounds to me like I'm standing up in this podium with this, big sheet of paper in front of me, and I'm shouting out to the masses, "This resolution, you will, and I will," and it's like a proclamation.
Right.
And so basically, you're going public with it.
Yeah.
And so what happens if you decide, I don't want to do that, or I can't do that, or maybe I was a little too premature in that I'm going to go to the gym every day and...
Yeah. What happens if one thing that's happened to me in the past is I start going to the gym and then I get sick. I get a cold or flu or something, and then it's really hard to get back. And then I feel guilty for not going back. And then the depression hits, which makes it harder to get back. And then once I get back, I had to start all over again. And then if something else hits, the cycle begins all over again.
So maybe the healthy way, I think, to approach it, I'm not saying, if you want to have a resolution and if that works for you, go for it, But I think for those that have trouble sticking to their resolutions and then wind up feeling guilty or shameful or whatever, maybe we should be thinking again about goal setting.
Yes.
Goal setting's a little different. The way I describe goal setting, so you and I want to go on a vacation. What's
Okay.
the first thing we have to decide?
Where to go?
Exactly. We need a destination. That's the goal, right?
Right.
I can't decide how I'm going to get there, what I'm going to do when I get there. Can't plan my itinerary till I decide where I'm going, right?
Right.
So the goal in itself is, okay, where do I want to go? Right?
Exactly.
Then once I decide where I want to go, then I can decide how am I going to get there,
Exactly.
right?
And
Generally,
what am I going to need to get there?
exactly. So I can't really, depending on the nature of the goal, I can't go from right where I am to where I want to be.
Right.
I have to go in segments or steps to get from one place to the other, right?
Exactly.
If it's a long distance, but nonetheless, I've got to get from where I am to the next point, to the next point, to the next point before I reach my destination, right?
Exactly.
We call those objectives.
Yes.
Okay. The objectives are the things I'm going to do that are going to get me from where I am to where I want to be.
Going along that line, part of my experience has been in getting there, I have to be willing, there's a negotiation, I have to let go of some other stuff, so I'm able to get the lightness to get over there as well.
Well, that's true. Sometimes people become burdened by having too many goals.
Exactly. And thinking that the goals are what make us who we're going to be. I used to give this analogy, and I'd like to get your input on this. I would talk about being on a street curb, water coming through the gutter, a lot of water, and I want to get to the street. And I know I have to jump over the water, but I'm hanging on to these 2 bags of heavy things. And what happens if I jump and I'm hanging on to this heavy luggage stuff?
Well, you're likely to be stepping right in that puddle.
Right in the water,
right.
and then these things and I get all wet. So in the new year, what I think of is making that leap, but I have to let go of these things. But in making the leap, there's a place between the curb and the street that's called nowhere. And I have to become comfortable in being nowhere for a little while before I land to where I am. And I think that's what scares most people, is the idea of being nowhere for a while, because we're in a society that likes instant gratification.
Right.
And so that's why I say it's kind of
See, that's the
paradox.
value of an objective, because
Yes.
the space between where I am and where I'm going is that place you just described as nowhere.
Right.
But an objective is a way to see that I'm making progress toward where I'm going. So it's reassuring to me to say, okay, I know it's going to be a while before I get to where I'm going, but I know that if I get from where I am to this first objective, that I'm further along than when I was, and that shows me I'm making progress.
So it's sort of a bridge builder.
Yes, if I have the reassurance that I'm making progress, then it makes that vacuum between here and there a whole lot easier.
Yes. And if you do fall in the water, get up. Sometimes I think we get the idea that if we fall in the water or if we make a mistake, there's one of the things I love about people in 12-step recovery, they have a step for that. They say, you promptly admit it and do something else.
Right.
And you've heard me many times say, I reserve the right to change my opinion tomorrow based on new information.
Right.
And I get the feeling that sometimes we're so hard on ourselves that we don't allow ourselves to change our mind. Or if we see something else here, say, okay, that was a good goal, but this goal might be better before I get to that goal.
Right.
And again, what you're
Well,
talking
and some people have. I mean, what you're talking about too is people have a hard time prioritizing.
Exactly.
Right. So they have this difficult time. I mean, it'd be nice if we just had one goal a year.
Right.
And maybe that's what we should be doing. I don't know, but usually we have multiple goals. Right.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with setting multiple goals, but if you try to use the shotgun approach and go after all of them at the same time, you've got very limited resources. You're almost doomed to fail because you can't put all of your effort and energy and focus and everything into multiple goals at the same time.
Well, yeah.
I used to do this exercise. I still use it sometimes. I had people draw a circle, like a pie chart.
Sure.
And then I had them, put down into different little pieces of the pie. There was work, there was family, there was personal or like exercise, there was spiritual, there was, financial. We could break it down in as many pieces as we wanted to, but those were some of the main areas. And so then we would set a goal for each one of those areas.
Yes.
But the thing that really had to happen was then when somebody looked at that and they said, well, how am I going to do all of this? That's where we said, okay, well, which one do you have to do first? Or which one do you want to do first? Or which one jumps out at you? And so then we had to prioritize. And I think that's the step that a lot of people forget about is prioritizing.
Well,
Speaking of prioritizing, right?
Right. Well, before we go to commercial, I just want to throw this in. I recently heard a friend say in his life with a spiritual director, he said he wanted to get his license as a contractor. And so he was working towards that, but he was going to Mount Sac and he took a photography class. And so he told his spiritual director, I want to be a photographer, professional photographer. He says, that's great. Finish what you started first. Then if you still want to do that, go do that, but finish this one first.
Right.
And talk about priorities. I see Frank looking through the window saying you better get priorities straight and go to commercial. My guest this evening is the one and only Dr. John Smith.
The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org. www.4pfp as in personalfuneralplanning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran-owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
The Tri-City Shopping Center in Redlands is serving up some really cool ice cream this summer at La Micho Acana. Then get your chocolates and other delights from C's Candies. Moms and future moms who visit the mall can cool off and relax while they get treated like royalty at Shiny Nails or Francis Nails and then pampered at Texture Hair. The Tri-City Center is filled with retailers who care about you. Shop at the Tri-City Center in Redlands and see why they call it the Mall with a Heart.
And welcome back. You're tuned to NBC Radio, KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, where you can listen from anywhere around the world at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John. I am your host, Father John Reed, along with our guest, Dr. John Smith, and the best sound man in the business, Frank Parolo.
Woo!
Hey, he's looking like you got it. I get an ice cream now or an M&M or something. He last time he gave me an ice cream, I actually put it on my forehead. Anyhow, inside joke around the studio here. So we're talking about new beginnings, and Dr. Smith is one of the best guys I know to talk about this because he knows how to help people get there. And not everybody knows how to do that.
Well, and that's the hard part is that a lot of people don't know how to do it, but they are feeling pressured that they have to do it. So they do it, I hate to use the word incorrectly that suggests there's a right and wrong way, but they don't do it with a lot of forethought, a lot of guidance, a lot of planning, which they could get they could get that from somebody else that is familiar with how to do that, right?
Yes.
Now, this isn't me getting on the soapbox saying everybody needs to go to a therapist, but I mean, that would be one person that you could go to help sort through that, because that's part of their training, is to help people set goals and to come up with objectives and what we call interventions or tasks that they need to complete in order to accomplish that, right?
Correct.
So, but it doesn't have to be a therapist. It can be a close friend, an ally. There are people out there that are called coaches, life coaches. That's
Right.
kind of what they're skilled at doing, or they say they're skilled at doing. But rather than talking about, why am I so sad, which is what you do in therapy, a coach is going to be somebody that's going to sit with you, and you're going to come up with a goal,
Goals.
right? And one of the things that we do when we're working toward goals and we're working toward objectives, we're going to run into obstacles.
And also times that we self-sabotage.
Well, and that may be one of the obstacles that we run into. So,
Yes.
there isn't a perfect way to do it. There's setting the goal or the destination. There's looking at the milestones we need to reach on our way from where we are to where we want to be. There's how are we going to do it? And I think that's where a lot of people, I mean, if they gotten that far, they get stuck at the how are we going to do it,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because if we're going somewhere we've never been, how do we know what we're looking at until we do it?
Exactly. And it's like people who go to school and get frustrated because they think they should already know the stuff that they're there to learn.
Yes.
And that's part of our not having confidence in ourselves. And it's not looking to blame anybody. It's recognition. Something I talk to my clients for counseling quite often is that we have this expression: what's the reality of the situation and what's my place in that reality?
Right.
And if you haven't been there before, you don't know what the reality is yet. And so there has to be a little test, a little going back and forth a little bit. And if you change your mind, give yourself permission, but make sure you're changing your mind because this isn't really what you want to do and not because you're afraid.
Right. When I get people all the time that say, I should have known better.
Oh,
And I go, wait, how many times has this happened to you? Well, this is the first time it ever happened. And I say, well, how can you know something you don't know until you know it, right?
Yeah.
Now you know. Now you've learned. So if you do it again, now we can say, yeah, you should have known better because you already knew what was going to happen. But if it never happened before, you never experienced before, how can you know something that you don't know?
There's a book I really like that, and I'm sure you've read it as well, as Who Moved My Cheese?
Yeah, yeah.
And it talks about getting stuck in the past or getting on the adventure, him, Ha, and then the other two, and getting into the adventure of finding new things. That's why, you've heard me say probably 1,000 times that crisis time is awakening time.
Yep, yep.
And
Well, the Chinese have a symbol for crisis that I can't write it right now, but the symbol means two things. It means danger and opportunity.
that's right.
So in a crisis, there's both that threat or danger and there's opportunity.
Sounds like marriage.
We won't go there tonight, thank you.
Sorry, dear.
Yeah,
She has a wild chancla.
yeah, that's right. You're in trouble now.
I am. You're going home with me tonight.
Yeah, okay.
I ain't
okay.
going in alone. So we're all kidding about this. And I think it's important that we learn how to give ourselves room to breathe.
Yeah,
We don't have to accomplish everything today.
that's another big thing that I have seen when people are moving toward a goal is they want to get there yesterday.
Yes.
We're I guess a society that wants everything right now.
Yes.
We
If
don't
not
want to wait
sooner.
we want instant gratification. We want it right now, and we don't have the tolerance or the patience to wait for something. So if it's not happening now, it's not happening fast enough, I get impatient. When I get impatient, I get frustrated. When I get frustrated, then I get the what the heck's, and throw up my hands and I quit.
It reminds me, true story. I used to give a week of my time to Camp Fox, YMCA Camp Fox on Calian Island. Excuse me. and the director's dinner, where you call it, what's called the bridge. And the director would get on there, I hear him almost every day, he calls out a name, report to the bridge immediately, if not sooner. And at one point I was hearing this, and after I was first in private practice doing counseling, I was still giving a week of my time to the YMCA for Camp Fox. And I can remember it just hit me what a rule of our society that is. Report immediately, if not sooner. In other words, we can't do it fast enough.
Right.
And even if we do, that's still not good enough. Now, that's from the outside. Then we go to the inside, which, you know, what was W.C. Fields say? Never give a sucker an even break.
Right.
And that's how we treat ourselves. And if that's how we treat ourselves, how can we ever make friends with ourselves? If we don't make friends with ourselves, how can we ever give ourselves a chance to even make a decent effort at a goal?
Yeah. As I'm sitting here thinking about goal setting, of course, you know, when I was thinking of it originally, I'm thinking of personal goals,
Right.
which I think are important. But then I think if you're in a relationship or in a marriage, boy, if you don't have some goals for that relationship or that marriage, if you just get on automatic pilot and you're just muddling through, I guarantee at some point there's going to be a problem, right?
Yes.
If the couple has set goals or a goal for themselves and they work toward that goal, maybe it's multiple goals, but a goal as a couple, we're going to work on this together. It brings unity to that relationship. It requires interaction, communication, you know, all the things that when couples have problems and they come to me, they say, we need to do, or we're having problems with, and it's either communication, it's spending time together, it's working as a team, a unified front. Nothing gets that put together better than working towards a common goal.
You know, one of the things I found, I really like to get your input on this. It's an experience I've seen over the years. If the couple doesn't do that, in the relationship, it becomes more and more difficult to express your needs,
Yes.
including romantic needs, because it's been so long, you are now intimidated to say, you know,
Right.
I would you like to be romantic tonight? And that kills so many relationships because they went from being a couple to being roommates. And so it feels like there's something dirty that you're trying to get with your roommate
Right.
instead of with your spouse. And well, we can laugh about that here. You know, there's some humor to it. But I found a lot of couples wind up having that. And I think one of the goals that could be set is rediscovering our intimacy.
Right. Into me, you see.
And to me, you see.
Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just have to be the physical, sexual aspect.
Right.
In fact, probably the emotional connection, intimacy should start before that, because
Amen.
it's a whole lot better when you have that than just the physical intimacy. I mean, start where you want to, but it's
Yeah.
important. And you know, and couples should have a goal. If you have children, have a family, I think having a family goal brings, again, a sense of unity to the family, a sense of identity, a sense of accomplishment. You know, each person plays a part in that process. And again, these are, especially in these times when we are spending a lot of time together, what's wrong with saying, well, let's make the most of it? How are we gonna make the most of our time together?
You know, that's one reason I really love family board games.
Oh yeah.
Those are terrific. You know, it amazes me, and I know this sounds like something I go on about it so often, but it really is important. You see a family at a restaurant, every one of them on a phone,
Oh yeah.
and nobody talking to anybody. And they wonder why they're in a family and they feel so alone. I'm not trying to put anyone down. I'm trying to draw attention to something. And maybe one of the goals for this year could be to put our phones down and rediscover who's in the family. And maybe
Right.
have one night. This is one area where I think the LDS Church really is smart, is they have a set family night that the family, it's them having fun, having games. Not with electronics, good old-fashioned board games or card
Right.
games. And I think that's a really wise idea.
Right.
So,
Right. Well, it's fun. It can be a little competitive. But it does bring. First of all, usually in a board game, everybody's equal.
Right.
So the kids don't feel like they're subordinate necessarily to the parents, and the parents get to be kids for a while, and so it is a good an opportunity to communicate and reestablish the relationships, because you can't have a marriage or a relationship or a family if you don't have those connections.
And I found it produces conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Because
What's that?
Yeah, exactly. Nothing to speak of. So, you had to set me up with
That's
that.
right. Yeah, I did.
There's the 12-year-old Father John.
I was waiting for that.
But seriously, when the hands are occupied, well, in a lot of different recovery programs, I've said for years that the worst thing that ever happened to any of the recovery programs was the styrofoam cup. Because in the old days, after different support meetings, you had to wash the cups and such. And you would have two people who were new to whatever the program was at the sink and someone who'd been there a long time. And while the two new people are washing things, their hands were busy, and they start asking questions that they would never ask if their hands weren't busy. They didn't think
Right.
about it. And the person that we might refer to as the elder or the old timer, whatever you want to refer to them, would be there to talk about what they're asking about. And before they knew it, they had gathered information they would not have had, because it was safe, because their hands were doing one thing, which disengaged the brain from all the defensive mechanism, or a good
Ooh, I
portion
like
of it.
that. Yeah.
And when they stopped doing that, I saw a real change in a lot of these programs. And so if I ever had a thing I could do, I would lock away all the styrofoam cups from these places and have it either plastic or glass cups, so that they have some room over the sink to be busy and then suddenly learn.
Sure. I like that. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So
I tried it with the dishwasher, but they got mad when I put them in there and closed the door.
yeah,
That's just me.
yeah, that's just you. Yeah. So yeah, I think just the concept of having a purpose, a goal, something. Again, personal goals, great. I think we should all have at least one personal goal that we set for the year.
Right.
All right. It doesn't have to take a year to get there, but just once we get there, then we can, if we want, we can come up with another one. But at least one. All right. The beginning of the year is a good time to set it, just because then it gives you a target.
Yes.
See, if I'm shooting at something, I want to know what I'm shooting at. So we have a target. What's the target date? When do I want to get there?
Right.
And again, then some people have problems setting that I want to get there yesterday.
Exactly.
Setting unrealistic target dates, but I got to have a target date. And then once I have all of that in place, then I start the process.
And what if I didn't choose a worthy enough goal?
How does one decide whether it's who decides whether it's worthy enough?
Exactly.
Is it, do I got to prove something to somebody? Do I got to prove something to myself? Do I have to do something better than the guy next door, or I don't know. I don't know how we decide whether it's worthy enough.
Exactly. And sometimes we don't give ourselves a break. And so we're always comparing our goal to someone else's goal. Well, that's a more noble goal. Why didn't I think of that? And for me, that comes from a place that no matter what I do, it's not going to be right, because it's me putting these pressures on myself. Mm-hmm. Well, what I try to tell some of my clients is, well, if the goal came up in you, then that's the goal that's good for you.
Yes.
And it's correct for you. Your goal isn't going to be the same as someone else's, and one's not more noble than another.
I don't want to. I want everybody to like me, and I don't want to upset anybody. And I don't know what I want. What do you want? That's a good enough goal. I'll just work with you, and you can. You see that a lot of people that have a hard time just, and I'm going to admit I've been one of those people. So I'm not making anybody else look at that any differently. But, I've been one of those people that have had a hard time saying what I want and working towards what I want.
Yes. And sometimes everyone around us does like us. We're the one that doesn't.
Right. Well, I mean, in my upbringing, I was taught that if I thought of anything for myself, I was being selfish.
Yes. Or egotistical.
Yeah.
Exactly. If I acknowledged I'd done something well, I was very involved in live theater. And if I ever felt good about a part I played, well, isn't that egotistical of you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Don't have any thought of self or pride in self,
And there within lies the problem that I'm alluding to, is that we're so hard on ourselves that even when we're doing a good job, it's not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an area that therapy can be really helpful, is discovering the fact that, you know what, you're doing the best you can, and that's good enough.
Right.
And the only person you're not able to please is you and your illusion of what you think other people are expecting.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm. What's perfect? Something I'm not. It's always it's a moving target.
Exactly. Well, Frank's looking at me like, what's perfect is this is the perfect time to go to our next commercial break. You're listening to Viewpoint with Father John on NBC Radio, KCAA, and my guest is Dr. John Smith. We'll be back in 90 seconds.
The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org, www.4pfp as in personalfuneralplanning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran-owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
The Tri-City Shopping Center in Redlands is serving up some really cool ice cream this summer at La Micho Acana. Then get your chocolates and other delights from See's Candies. Moms and future moms who visit the mall can cool off and relax while they get treated like royalty at Shiny Nails or Francis Nails and then pampered at Texture Hair. The Tri-City Center is filled with retailers who care about you. Shop at the Tri-City Center in Redlands and see why they call it the Mall with a Heart.
And welcome back. You're tuned to NBC Radio, KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or you can listen from anywhere around the world at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John. I am your host, Father John Reed. And, to all you that send me different communications, thank you. And I received some really loving messages after last week's show, and I appreciate that when I poured my heart out, there was people who responded, and I'll be honest, I was a little bit embarrassed because I let some personal stuff come out that was painful to me, and instead judgment, you sent me love. And I just wanted you to know how much that has meant to me, that the tender, loving notes that you sent me. And so I do read them. They do mean a lot to me, and I'm glad that you take seriously when I talk about us being a family, because we really are. And family is people who care for one another. I think of the words of Richard Bach in his book Illusions, where one of the things he wrote is members of the same family are not always raised under the same roof or bloodline, but are drawn together by love and spirit. and that's our true family. And by that, you certainly are my true family. This evening, my guest, of course, is Dr. John Smith. And just to remind you, Dr. Smith is a psychotherapist, licensed to do this. He's a professor and the author of the book, The Authentic Man, A Guide to Happiness and Purpose. This is a book that is fabulous. Not only have I read it multiple times, I've given it as gifts. I've had some of my counseling clients get the book because it would be perfect for what they were dealing with. And every one of them that have read it come back and said how much it meant to them, both men and women reading it. So, Dr. Smith, thank you for being with us again.
I'm always excited to be here and love coming on the show.
And you're going to be filling in for me in a couple weeks.
Yes, I am.
In
yes,
a month,
you're going to go off doing wonderful things with a retreat, and so I'm going to fill in for you that week. So.
Yeah, so that'll be the last Thursday of the month. He'll be in my place. So tune in and support him. He does a fabulous job. You know, I wouldn't trust him with the show if I didn't really have confidence in him, because I have too much respect for you, our listeners. So I only want the best for you. And I know I'm embarrassing him right now, but
I am.
But
it's nice of you to say that.
It's
I
meant
appreciate
with all
it.
sincerity.
Thank you. Thank you. I treat it with very, very, very respectfully.
I appreciate you doing that, so I can go and be ready for the retreat. And especially now, it takes me long to get ready for the retreat. Yeah, this getting older is not what they promised.
Yeah, they lied.
Yeah, no kidding.
They lied.
Yeah. Just like when they told me that liver and onions would be good.
They said good for you, not good.
Well, my mom didn't tell me that part.
She kept the for you out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well then,
She was stingy.
yeah.
So, where's some thoughts you'd like to give the listener in our last segment?
Well, okay, so let's kind of bring it up. So we're talking about setting goals rather than what we would normally do, resolutions, right? We're saying goals are a little different. You can set multiple goals, but then you have to be able to prioritize, which is what a lot of people have a hard time doing. That requires some decision making, and you got to look and say, okay, what makes sense? What should happen first, and how much time is that going to take, and how much energy, and what resources do I need, and blah blah blah. All of that's got to happen. But then I was mentioning, there are personal goals, there are couple relationship goals, and there are family goals, and I think a goal in each one of those areas for the year is more than adequate. If you accomplish a goal or the goals, that nothing says you can't set others, but if you have too many, it just sort of diffuses the whole purpose. So maybe it's sit down with yourself, get out a piece of paper, if you want, draw that circle that I mentioned, put down those different life areas, see if there's one that really stands out. Like for some people, maybe it's health. Right. Especially these days with all that's going on, I need to maintain my health. Maybe it's financial. I need to get out of debt or pay down my, my bills, or I've got something that I want to target in the financial area. Maybe it's, again, something work-related. I want to get a promotion, or I want to get a job, or maybe I want to change jobs.
Maybe I want to go to school.
And there you go, education. So put those things down, and then set a goal for yourself, and it doesn't matter. You're not going to make a mistake.
Right.
You're just going to make a choice, a decision. Mm-hmm. Get the family together, or get if it's a couples thing, get the couple together and have a conversation. Take that piece of paper and say, what do we want to accomplish this year as a couple?
Yes, absolutely.
Just having that conversation is an amazing thing. It's going to open up a lot of avenues that a lot of couples just don't even think about. And then as a family, again, if you've got kids and, you want to have some sort of a family goal, which I think would be excellent, include them in coming up with the goal.
Yes.
Which you're then teaching them how to set goals and how to figure out how to do it. And you're teaching them a little delayed gratification, and you're teaching them, I can do whatever I set my sights on. I just have to be willing to do what it takes to get there.
And I would just throw in there to take turns with if your goals are not exactly the same, okay, well, let's go with this goal for right now that you both can agree on, and then we'll go with the next goal.
Which teaches the skill that so many people lack of negotiation and compromise.
Right.
Nobody seems to know how to negotiate and compromise anymore. It's my way or the highway, and they just don't know how to, give and take.
Give and take.
Again, successful negotiation and successful compromise isn't I get everything I want, but it's I don't walk away feeling like I gave up everything either. It's a win-win type situation. We both get something we want. We both give up something, but we still feel like we got a piece of that.
And that's an important point, because we live in a society right now that seems to be hell-bent on one person has to win and one person has to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of both being able to win, both be able to walk away with something beneficial, we forgot that that's healthy.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, it's become such a black and white society. I don't mean color. I just mean black and white, right and wrong.
Right.
This or that, win, lose. It's
Exactly.
one or the other. There's no gray. There's no middle ground. There's no negotiation. There's no discussion. There's no compromise. And this is across the board, from the highest levels of politics to our home and our family.
One of the things my spiritual hero, Richard Rohr, says, it's not either or, it's and.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can get into and, then there's room for two people or more people there, because everybody is invested in what we're going to do. We have some goals, and we hear one another. The communication you're talking about, but also the consideration.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, why I hear you, but we're going to do what I said.
Right. And I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't everything doesn't have to be a negotiation or a compromise, but
Right.
just including that, especially when it comes to families and couples where there's more one person involved.
Yes.
Then it's always good to get everybody's buy-in and make sure everybody walks away feeling like they've been heard, that they've had input, that their input was important. It wasn't just unilateral decision making, which is what we seem to be doing a lot of these days.
Right. And, and we can see how that is not working. This,
I don't think it is.
yeah, instead of communication, we have domination.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a real losing battle, because look at all the violence. And we see the violence out there and we say, oh, that's awful. But what about the violence going on inside ourselves that's happening? Because in our relationships, without realizing it, we're doing the same thing.
Right.
And we wonder why we're walking around the house so darn mad.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, we're feeling unfulfilled. Well, whose fault is that?
Yeah.
If I'm unfulfilled, it means that I'm either not stating what I want, I'm in a situation where I'm not going to get what I want, so what am I going to do now?
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm feeling angry and unfulfilled, then it's my job to speak up.
Yes. I like the idea of looking at everyone's responsible, no one's to blame.
Yeah.
And we take responsibility for where we're coming from, rather than blaming myself or blaming you, but realizing here's something that needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
And in that idea, once it gets expressed, and I don't know about you, but I find a lot of times if I'm not expressing this because I'm terrified, well, I'm not going to get over the terror by thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
I have to take an action, and I have to dare to walk through the fear, because getting over the fear is on the other side of that.
Right.
And I can't get there if I don't move through it.
Right. Well, and fear in itself is an emotion that is trying to get us to run away from the thing that is threatening us rather than to move toward it. If they train soldiers and other folks to walk toward the threat rather than to run away from it, and sometimes even when you have highly trained soldiers, and when the threat gets too big, then their instincts take over and they freeze or run. It's just,
Right.
but yeah, you do have to at some point, and I think we call that courage, is the courage to just say, I'm going to step through it.
Yes.
because you can't get to the other side if you don't get through it. And a lot of people try to get around it, but most of these obstacles are not built to get around. They're obstacles that are built that you have to climb over or bust through.
I learned from a friend of mine, Dr. Dorothy Love, God bless her. She taught me when I was an early student the idea of learning to complete the experience, bless it, and move on. But you have to do everything it takes to complete it. Bless it because it's had a gift it's offered you. Make sure you receive it, and then move on.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, and in doing that, it opens up so much.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't complete the experience, then I have to keep re-experiencing it until I do. There is no social promotion in life.
Right, and you've said something that is so true, and I don't know if a lot of people believe that, but it's true. If there's a lesson to be learned and I don't learn it, it's going to keep coming back around and repeating itself, usually a little bit louder and a little bit stronger each time until I finally get it.
And the price gets higher each time history repeats itself.
Yeah, I think so.
And more painful.
Yeah.
You know, I think of, like I have to take insulin shots. And if I just do it, it's not so bad. But if I think about it, I go through all the pain before the needle even hits me.
Right.
And so I really put myself in a lot more pain than if I just, took care of the thing. And that dawned on me one time. I thought, I'm really giving myself agony that I don't need to have because really the pinch isn't that bad, In reality, in my mind, it's a harpoon. It's Captain Ahab and I'm the big white whale.
Yeah. Arr, arr.
You always have to be Lucky Charms,
That's
too.
right.
I just turned
I
Ahab.
think we should do a
into-
show all in pirate talk one night. Maybe that would be,
Well, I don't want to argue with you.
The 12-year-old just came out again.
Yeah, I see a letter from FCC now.
Yeah, we didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah. You say. You arguing with me again?
Yeah.
So, well, folks, we want to bring you some fun too. And, we're in our last couple of minutes. And I just want to go over your book again.
Okay.
And folks, I really recommend reading this book. It's The Authentic Man, A Guide to Happiness and Purpose. This isn't an infomercial. It's just, this is the start of a new year. And I'd like to start you off on a healthy diet. And this is a good, healthy diet for your mind, for your emotions, and for your soul personally.
Well, I appreciate that.
so-
But it is. I mean, I wrote it with that in mind. It's my story, but it's also a story of with specific things that we can do to achieve happiness, to identify our purpose, to work through those obstacles and things that might hold us back. And I think there's, the feedback I've gotten is that, it definitely helps people to do that. So.
Well, most importantly, it's an easy read. A book doesn't do any good if it's so difficult. By the end of it, you have such anxiety because it was so difficult to read. This flows. It's an easy book to read, and it's a book that you feel that. Well, I feel I'm in relationship with when I'm reading it because I can hear you. Because I read the book before you and I ever met.
Right.
That's how we wound up meeting. Was read the book and I looked it up and found you on LinkedIn. And it was terrific. I was just really impressed. So that's fantastic.
Well, I appreciate that. And, I know that many people say that it's helped them, both men and women. And so, to take a chance, it's not expensive. It's, I forget what it is, $15.95 or something on Amazon, and definitely would be,
You're
something.
asking a man with dementia to remember something.
That's true.
Which one of us really needs therapy right now?
Okay, yeah. That's true.
Good Lord, man. You're talking about putting a friend under pressure.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's
know.
true. That's
Ask
true.
me what happened in third grade. I'm good
Yeah,
on that.
that's right. Right. What you had for breakfast? No way. Huh?
No. Even though I try to keep it the same to make it easier.
Well,
I forget.
that's true. If it's the same thing, it's a little easier.
I still can't remember.
Yeah. We can't remember if you had breakfast, right?
Yeah,
Let alone
yeah.
what you ate.
True. Well, anyhow, you've been listening to Viewpoint with Father John on NBC Radio, KCAA. My guest has been Dr. John Smith, and I want to give thanks to our sound engineer, Frank Parolo, and best man in the business. And most importantly, all seriousness, if no one's told you that they love you this week, let me be the first. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to being with you again next week. God's blessing be upon you.